Hey there, gardeners. This is Shannie McCabe, Zone 9B gardener in Central Florida, and I am coming at you today with a video all about tomatoes. We are going to talk about my top tomato tips for gardeners specifically growing in the Southeast. Now, lots of these tips are applicable to gardeners everywhere, but I am going to hone in on the specific challenges that we have in the super deep South. I'm in Florida, the peninsula. It is super hot down here. We have specific challenges that we deal with when we have super hot, super humid summers. So without further ado, let's get into the video. I'm gonna break these tips down from beginning of growing all the way to harvest, and these are just some ways that you can optimize your growing. These are sort of beyond the standard tomato suggestions. These are more specialized for the Southeast or for anywhere that is super hot and humid in the summer during your tomato growing season. All right, first, let's talk about seed starting tips. Now, I grew up in New England, and it was imperative that we use a seed soil warming mat, lights. We start our tomatoes indoors. That might not be the case for you, depending on where in the South and depending on when you start your tomato seeds. The optimal soil temperature range for tomatoes is about 78, 85 degrees. Nice and warm. You may be able to provide that without investing in a heat mat, but the heat mat is incredibly helpful to give you a jump in germination. If you are concerned that you're gonna have cooler weather as you're starting your tomatoes out, down here in Central Florida, I've never needed to use a heat mat. It tends to be plenty warm when I'm starting my seedling trays. I do have a little greenhouse. It's just a cheap little setup, and that can be helpful for me to just get my seedlings off to a good start. So you may or may not need a seed mat to do it, but ideally aim for warm soil temperatures to get those seeds germinating and going. Variety selection is so important when you're growing with specific sort of intense conditions like we are. Those very large heirloom beefsteaks can be challenging for me because they really invite pests and diseases. In fact, if you're a Florida gardener, you probably know that the only tomato that you can truly grow all through the summer is the Everglades tomato, which is like the size of a pencil eraser. They're very tiny, but they're so incredibly small. They're so quick to mature. Pests don't really get to them. And that can be oftentimes the only tomato you're harvesting once July and August comes around. The next requirement we're going to look for is something that is disease resistant. Now, this can be achieved by looking for a hybrid variety that was selected and perfected for the Southeast for high humidity and heat conditions. For instance, this season, I wanted just one type of tomato in my garden this season. I just wanted a Roma canning, saucing tomato. I make a ton of Indian curry in my house. I wanted one reliable type of tomato, and I'm doing a hybrid Roma. It's got lots of vigor, lots of disease resistance. So that is what I've selected for this season. In other seasons, I've decided to go the heirloom route with great success. Arkansas Traveler tomatoes are very well adapted to the heat and humidity. You can also go with the green zebra tomato. That one has done really well for me down here in Florida. There are a number of varieties. You'll do a bit of research. You can paw through the Botanical Interest catalog, see what you can find, but ensure that there's some disease resilience and some heat and humidity tolerance to that specific variety. That is what is going to do best in your southeastern garden. Okay, hypothetical, you've got your tomatoes, they have germinated, they are nice and robust little seedlings, and they are ready to go in the ground. You might be doing grow bags, you could be doing raised beds. Today, I am doing field planting of tomatoes. And my tomatoes were planted out over a month ago. So I'm not going to be demonstrating planting today, but we can talk about one very, very crucial factor in growing in the Southeast, and that is your spacing. Indeterminate tomatoes are optimally going to be at least 3 feet apart in spacing so that they can branch out as needed. They can really stretch their legs and make optimum production. There may be instances in your gardening life where you could cram your plants in, but tomatoes in the Southeast and planted for your spring, summer production, that is not the time to cram plants, just trust me. Maybe if you are a super southern gardener like myself and you're going to do a fall planting of tomatoes as well, and you're going to be growing them closer to the winter time, you could get them spaced a little bit closer. But when we're talking about contending with the super heat, super humidity, farther spacing is always going to be better. Here are some other considerations to make when you're planting out your field or your raised bed or your gardens of your tomatoes. You want to provide a nice thick layer of mulch. This is going to be so critical when we're talking about a very hot summer. That layer of mulch, in my case, I've got some nice coastal hay. A nice thick layer of mulch is going to trap moisture. It's going to prevent the major fluctuations in soil temperature and soil moisture. That is very important because blossom end rot is largely driven by fluctuations in your soil's moisture. Really quick, let's touch on watering. I have here a drip irrigation system where my emitters, the holes in my watering tape, and this is actually not drip tape, it's called landscape tubing, I believe, because mine's made of polyethylene. But you could use drip tape, you could use polyethylene, and you just want the emitter to land right near the base of your plant. You want to run that irrigation consistently, and you want to give those plants long, deep drinks of water. We want our plants to establish nice, deep roots. This is specifically important for southeastern gardeners. It's really helpful for all gardens, I've noticed. From New England to the Ozarks, when you have humidity and you have warm nighttime temperatures, and then you've got irrigation going, blasting the foliage of your plants, you're just asking for fungal problems. So instead, opt for getting your water concentrated right at the base of your plant. Don't get that foliage all wet. Don't ask for fungal problems by doing that. Keep the water where it should be, right at the roots. They don't need it on the top of their plants, and you're gonna be in great shape. Now, I want to talk a little bit about pruning your suckers. I personally believe that pulling suckers in the southeast, where we're trying to optimize airflow and we want our plants to be as open and getting as much free airflow as possible, I think it really helps to pull my suckers. So I always do it. We have a leaf here. We have the main stem here, and then we've got this guy growing up, and it feels painful. I even had a little flower on there. That's sad, but this is going to make for better airflow for my plants. Your plants are much happier. I have two systems. I have this one, which is made of 1/2-inch EMT conduit and these little kind of like brackets. Yeah, there we go, these little T's. The EMT conduit gets slammed into the ground with a T-post driver, and then I run the conduit along the top, and it comes down to my tomato plants here where I wrap them and I secure it right to the base of the plant. And then this is the standard, tried and true, you know, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. This is a great design. This is the Florida weave, where I slam T-posts into the ground, and then I just weave the 2 layers of nylon tomatoes twine, and I just basically tuck my tomatoes into the little nylon. They live, you know, compressed between the nylon strings. And I also pull my suckers when I do this system as well. And both were pretty much comparable. They were both very happy. I will always probably stick with this dual system just because I like looking at it. I think it's cool to compare them. I was kind of wondering if I'd see huge differences. I didn't see huge differences. I thought they both work really wonderfully. So wherever you can find probably cheaper materials, wherever you can access EMT conduit or T-post, whichever is easier for you to find, is probably the one to choose. Now let's talk a little bit about pests. They are just part of life when you garden in the Southeast. Our excess heat and humidity really does make a perfect situation when it comes to the life cycle of lots of different insect pests and lots of different diseases, be they fungal, viral, bacterial. There's lots of different ways that your tomatoes can bite the dust. I try to be as preventative as possible with battling the pests and diseases. This means I space my tomatoes out, I keep the watering right at the base of the plants, I pull my suckers. Everything is basically in service of getting optimal airflow and keeping the humidity as low as possible, not making it worse with adding water. And I keep the watering really regular. All of those tips, those are preventative tips to make sure that your plants are as healthy as possible, because the healthier your plants are, the better, more resilient they're going to be in the face of all of the pests and disease that we are going to deal with. But if I were to be busy this summer, it's too hot, I've got kids, I can't get out to my garden, a preventative application of BT, maybe once a month, coming out and applying Bacillus thuringiensis. I'm gonna make sure that it's not going to rain later that day. I want a couple days of dry weather when I apply. I'm gonna do it in the morning, I'm not gonna do it midday. Applying some BT is a great way to prevent some of your caterpillar issues. It's called Bacillus thuringiensis. It's a naturally occurring bacteria, and it's just going to take care of those caterpillar issues. And perhaps one of the biggest issues with tomatoes is something that is completely invisible, an invisible predator. You will not see these crawling on your plants. You will not see them munching your tomatoes, and that is the root knot nematode. Root knot nematode is invisible to the naked eye. It's present in sandy soil, so common in the Southeast. Root knot nematode is, again, one that you've got to do more preventative work on. Once root knot nematode is present in your soil and you're growing tomatoes, it's already going to start to wreak havoc. So this is something we can do preventative work on. The crab shell meal battles the root knot nematode for you. So we get some crab shell meal in our soil. Also, the higher your organic matter is in your soil, the more harsh the environment for root knot nematodes. So increasing your organic matter through using cover crops or amending with good quality compost, that can also help prevent or mitigate the RKN, the root knot nematode. My final tips are regarding harvest. Now, typically growing up in New England, I would let my tomatoes ripen all the way on the plants. I would come out and just grab my tomatoes all the way ripe and eat them straight out of the garden. And with cherry tomatoes in the Southeast, you can do that. You can let them ripen all the way. But when we get into our larger sized tomatoes, picking them about half ripe can be tremendously helpful, because a lot of the issues that your tomatoes are going to run into happen right as the fruit is starting to ripen. It's so painful to watch them become food for a predator or to succumb to a fungal disease because of a small crack right as they've finished off their ripening. So what you can do is just grab them at their breaker stage as they are starting to ripen up, as they're starting to turn that ideal color. Bring them inside, put them on your windowsill and let them ripen there. They're still going to be absolutely delicious, and you can sort of grab them before they succumb to those late stage pests and diseases. All right, I hope you could take those tips, pack them with you, and have a fantastic tomato year. I know if you're a Southeastern gardener, you are not wimpy. I know if you are a Southeastern gardener, you are tough. You are made of tough stuff already. So you can definitely make tomatoes happen. You've just got to do a little bit of prevention and you're going to have a fabulous tomato harvest. Happy growing.